The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for over 50 years. To them, it was a curiosity. A joke, almost. The planet was classified as a Class 12 death world, which meant it was one of the most dangerous places in the known galaxy. The gravity was crushing. The weather changed without warning. Storms that could flatten cities appeared in hours. The temperature swung from freezing cold to burning hot, depending on where you stood. And the life forms that evolved there were nightmares. Everything on Earth seemed designed to kill. There were tiny insects that could drop a creature 10 times their size, plants that were poisonous to touch, bacteria that could eat through metal, large predators with claws and teeth, small predators with venom, ocean creatures that could swallow ships, land animals that could run for days without stopping. The fact that humans had survived at all was remarkable. The fact that they had built cities, created technology, and reached for the stars was something the Council found hard to believe. Most species that evolved on Deathworlds never made it past the Stone Age. They were too busy fighting for survival. Commander Zeftik of the Vraxian Empire had studied the reports on humanity with growing interest. His people were warriors. They had conquered 40 star systems through strength and superior tactics. The Vraxians were tall, powerful, and built for combat. Their scales could deflect most weapons. Their forearms made them deadly in close quarters. They were respected and feared throughout the galaxy. When the Council decided to make official contact with Earth, Zeftik volunteered to lead the mission. He was curious about these Deathworlders. Strong, perhaps. Tough. Certainly. But also primitive and simple. They had only just discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships were basic. Their weapons were crude. They would need guidance from the more advanced species. They would need to learn their place in the galactic order. The human response to the invitation surprised everyone. They accepted immediately. They seemed eager to join the galactic community. They asked intelligent questions about protocols and customs. They prepared a delegation within weeks. Captain Jake Morrison was chosen to lead the human team. He was a career military officer who had transitioned into diplomatic service. At 42 years old, he had seen enough of Earth politics to know how to navigate tricky situations. He was calm, observant, and had a talent for reading people, or in this case, aliens. His team was small but skilled. Amy Rodriguez was their pilot, a woman who could fly anything with engines and had nerves of steel. Ben Carter was their engineer, a practical man who could fix problems that computers said were impossible. Katie Walsh was their scientist, brilliant and curious about everything. Danny Price was their security officer, a former soldier who took his job of protecting the team seriously. They traveled to Harmony Station aboard a human cargo vessel called the Liberty. It was not an impressive ship by galactic standards. It was bulky and slow. But it was reliable, and it got them there safely. When they emerged from faster-than-light travel and saw Harmony Station for the first time, they were all struck silent. The station was massive. It hung in space like a small moon, covered in lights and docking ports. Ships of dozens of different designs came and went like insects around a hive. This was the heart of galactic civilization. The Liberty docked at an assigned port. As the airlock opened and the humans stepped out onto the station, they immediately noticed something odd. Everything felt light. Too light. Jake took a step and nearly floated. He had to adjust his movement to avoid bouncing. The gravity, Katie said quietly. It's about 40% of Earth normal. Why so low? Amy asked. Probably average for most species, Ben replied. Remember, Earth is a high-gravity world. They were met by a greeting party of various aliens. Most were shorter than humans. They moved carefully, as if worried about falling. Their skin ranged from pale to colorful. Some had extra limbs, others had none. The diversity was stunning, but what struck the humans most was how fragile everyone seemed. Not weak, exactly. Just delicate. Like they might break if handled roughly. Commander Zeftik was there to greet them personally. He was the largest being in the greeting party, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His forearms were folded in a gesture of respect. His scaled skin gleamed under the station lights. He was impressive by any standard. "Welcome to Harmony Station," Zeftik said through a translation device. His voice was deep and resonant. "I am Commander Zeftik. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we are pleased to establish relations with Earth." Jake bowed slightly, a gesture they had practiced. "Thank you, Commander. We are honored to be here. I am Captain Jake Morrison. This is my team." He introduced each member. Zeftik studied them carefully. They were all within a few inches of each other in height. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed unusual. Their eyes were focused and alert. They looked around constantly, taking in everything. The welcome ceremony was held in a large hall near the docking area. 200 species were represented on Harmony Station, and it seemed like members of each one had come to see the new arrivals. The humans were objects of intense curiosity. The ceremony involved speeches, exchanges of symbolic gifts, and a formal presentation of weapons. This was a Vraxian tradition that had been adopted by the Council. Each new species presented a weapon from their homeworld as a sign of trust. In return, they received a ceremonial blade from the Council. Jake presented a simple combat knife from Earth. It was steel, balanced for throwing or close combat. The Council representatives examined it with interest. The design was elegant but clearly meant for killing. It spoke volumes about Earth's history. In return, Jake received a crystalline blade that hummed with energy. It was beautiful and deadly. He accepted it with appropriate reverence. Then came the Vraxian part of the ceremony. A warrior stepped forward carrying a traditional Vraxian plasma spear. It was ornate, decorated with symbols of past victories. The warrior was supposed to present it to Jake, who would hold it briefly before returning it. But as the warrior extended the spear, his grip slipped. The weapon fell. Danny moved without thinking. His hand shot out and caught the spear before it could hit the ground. The movement was blindingly fast. One moment the spear was falling. The next, Danny held it securely. The reaction was immediate. Aliens near Danny jumped back. Some made sounds of alarm. Security officers reached for weapons. Alert signals chimed throughout the hall. Danny froze, suddenly aware that everyone was staring at him. He carefully, slowly, handed the spear back to the Vraxian warrior. "Sorry," Danny said. "Reflex." Zeftik stepped forward, raising his hands to calm the crowd. "It is fine. No harm done. The human officer has quick reflexes. This is to be expected from a Deathworld species." But Zeftik's mind was racing. He had barely seen Danny move. The speed was incredible. No Vraxian could move that fast. Few species in the galaxy could. And this human had done it casually, without effort, as a simple reflex. For the first time, Zeftik wondered if the Council had made a mistake. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. That classification was based on environmental dangers. But what did it mean for the species that evolved there? What kind of abilities would a creature need to survive in such a place? The ceremony continued, but the mood had changed. The aliens watched the humans more carefully now. There was wariness in their eyes. The humans, for their part, tried to move more slowly and carefully. They smiled and were polite. They answered questions about Earth, but Jake noticed the change. He saw the fear in some faces, the calculation in others. He had been in enough negotiations to know when the dynamic of a room shifted, and it had shifted the moment Danny caught that spear. That night, in their assigned quarters, the team gathered to discuss the day. "I messed up," Danny said. "I scared them." "You did what came naturally," Katie replied. "It's not your fault their reflexes are slower." "But that's the problem," Jake said quietly. "We're different from them in ways we didn't anticipate. We need to be more careful." 1-5. "How careful?" Amy asked. "Should we pretend to be weaker than we are?" "No," Jake said firmly. "Deception would be worse. But we need to be aware that what seems normal to us might seem extraordinary to them." Ben nodded. "The gravity here is light. The temperature is controlled. Everything is safe and comfortable. They've built a civilization without the daily danger we grew up with. The first few weeks on Harmony Station were a learning experience for everyone involved. The humans tried to adjust to life among the stars. The aliens tried to figure out what to make of their new neighbors from Earth. Katie Walsh was the first to make a real impression. The station had a problem with one of the outer hull sections. Radiation was leaking through damaged shielding. The area needed to be repaired, but it was considered too dangerous for most species. The radiation levels would kill a normal galactic citizen in less than 3 hours. The station engineers planned to send repair drones. But drones were slow and imprecise. The job would take days. Katie overheard them discussing the problem in the station's main engineering bay. "I could do it," she offered. The chief engineer, a Krillix named Vorn, looked at her with concern. "The radiation levels are extremely high. Fatal to most biological life." Katie pulled up the readings on her datapad. She studied them for a moment. "This is about the same as a summer day in the Australian outback on Earth, maybe a bit less. I grew up in New Mexico. We get radiation like this all the time." Vorn's 3 eyes blinked in confusion. "Your planet has natural radiation at these levels?" "Sure. From the sun. Earth's atmosphere blocks most of it. But not all. And some places on Earth have higher natural background radiation. We adapt to it." The other engineers gathered around, fascinated and horrified. Katie explained how Earth's sun put out enormous amounts of radiation, how humans had evolved under that radiation, how their cells had repair mechanisms that most galactic species lacked. "If you give me a suit and the right tools, I can have this fixed in 2 hours," Katie said. They gave her the equipment. She went out to the damaged section and got to work. The job took 90 minutes. She came back, removed her suit, and asked if anyone wanted to grab lunch. The engineering staff stared at her. Medical scans showed she had absorbed some radiation, but her body was already repairing the minor damage. Within a day, she would be completely fine. The story spread through the station like wildfire. The human woman had walked through deadly radiation like it was nothing. What kind of world produced beings like this? Ben Carter made his own impression a week later. The station's cooling system had a critical component that was jammed. It was located in a maintenance tunnel where the temperature had dropped to -40 degrees. The tunnel was too small for most repair drones and too cold for any living being. The station managers were discussing options when Ben spoke up during a maintenance meeting. "I'll go in and fix it," he said simply. "The temperature will kill you in minutes," said the maintenance director. "It's just cold," Ben replied. "I've worked in worse. Winters in Alaska get colder than that. Just give me some warm clothes, and I'll handle it." They tried to explain that it wasn't about comfort, it was about biological limits. Cells would freeze, organs would shut down. Ben shrugged. "Human cells are mostly water. And water doesn't freeze at -40 if it's got salt and other stuff in it. Blood won't freeze. Skin might get frostbite if I stay too long, but I'll be quick." He put on thermal gear, climbed into the tunnel, and fixed the jam in 20 minutes. He came out with red cheeks and cold fingers, but otherwise fine. He drank some hot coffee and went back to work. The aliens were starting to realize that human biology was built for extremes that would kill most galactic citizens. Amy Rodriguez shocked everyone during her 3rd week on the station. A supply run needed to be made through the Carvin asteroid field. The field was dense and chaotic, with rocks moving in unpredictable patterns. Most pilots avoided it. Those who had to cross it used automated navigation and moved very slowly. The trip took 18 hours one way. Amy volunteered to make the run manually. The station's flight coordinator tried to explain the dangers. The asteroids moved fast. The field was 3-dimensional and complex. Computer guidance was essential. "Let me try," Amy said. "If it's too hard, I'll turn back." They agreed, mostly because they thought she would give up quickly. She took a small transport ship and entered the field. Her approach was nothing like the careful, slow method other pilots used. She accelerated into the field, her hands flying over the controls. To Amy, It was like a video game she had played 1,000 times. Her eyes tracked multiple objects at once. Her brain calculated trajectories without thinking about it. Her reflexes let her make tiny course corrections constantly. She wove through the asteroid field like she was dancing. She completed the crossing in 4 hours. Then she did it again on the way back. When she docked at the station, she found a crowd waiting. She had broken 3 speed records and cut the travel time by more than 70%. The flight coordinator asked how she had done it. Amy tried to explain about human visual processing, pattern recognition, and reflexes. But mostly she said it just felt natural. Humans evolved as hunters, she explained. We had to track fast-moving prey through complex terrain. Our brains are built for this kind of navigation. Jake Morrison, meanwhile, was learning about galactic politics. As Earth's observer, he attended Galactic Council sessions. These were formal affairs where representatives from dozens of species discussed trade, treaties, and disputes. At first, Jake mostly listened. He took notes. He asked polite questions. But as the weeks passed, he started to see patterns. The Zelkron Consortium always voted the same way as the Terex Federation, even when it went against Zelkron interests. The Vraxian Empire had quiet allies among species that publicly opposed them. The Krillix engineers controlled more than they admitted by managing the station's infrastructure. Jake had grown up reading human history. He had studied politics and strategy. He recognized what was happening. There were alliances and betrayals, secret deals and public lies, power plays disguised as cooperation. The other delegates seemed to take everything at face value. When someone made a statement, they believed it. When an agreement was signed, they thought it would be honored. They were trusting in a way that seemed dangerous to Jake. He began to make careful suggestions during sessions. He asked questions that revealed contradictions. He pointed out when agreements didn't match actions. At first, the other delegates were confused. Then some of them started to understand. Jake was showing them a level of political thinking they had never encountered. One delegate, a Yearlin named Kess, approached Jake after a session. "You see things others do not." "How?" Jake smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying. Trust, but verify. We learned a long time ago that not everyone means what they say. So we watch what people do, not just what they promise. This is common on your world? Very common. We've been practicing politics and deception for thousands of years. It's part of how we survive." Kess looked troubled. "Your species is naturally suspicious?" "Not suspicious," Jake corrected. "Careful. There's a difference." Danny Price was making friends in the security department. He had been assigned to work with station security as part of cultural exchange. The security officers were professional and skilled, but they operated on different assumptions than Danny was used to. During a training exercise, Danny was asked to demonstrate human combat techniques. Most species in the galaxy used weapons or relied on natural advantages like size or venom. Hand-to-hand combat was rare. Danny showed them basic moves: how to block, how to strike efficiently, how to use leverage instead of strength, how to turn an opponent's momentum against them. The security officers were disturbed. Danny was showing them how to turn a body into a weapon. No tools needed. No energy required. Just knowledge and practice. On Earth, we call these martial arts, Danny explained. Every culture on our planet developed ways to fight without weapons. Some of these techniques are thousands of years old. "Why would you need to fight without weapons?" one officer asked. Danny thought about how to explain. "Sometimes you don't have a weapon. Sometimes your weapon breaks. Sometimes you need to stop someone without killing them. And sometimes, you just need to know you can defend yourself with nothing but your hands." He didn't mention the advanced techniques. The pressure points that could disable someone instantly. The throws that could break bones. The locks that could control someone twice your size. That would be too much for them to handle right now. But word spread anyway. The humans had weaponized their own bodies. They had studied violence and made it into an art form. Combined with their speed and strength, it made them terrifying. Commander Zeftik heard all these reports. He watched the humans carefully. Every day brought new evidence that these Deathworlders were more capable than anyone had predicted. Katie could work in environments that would kill others. Ben could operate in extremes of temperature. Amy had reflexes and spatial awareness that seemed superhuman, even though it was just normal for humans. Jake was revealing levels of political sophistication that made other delegates look naive. Danny had combat skills that didn't rely on size or weapons, and these were just 5 humans. One small delegation. What would happen if Earth sent 100, 1,000? What if their military forces were as capable as these civilians? Zeftik called a private meeting with his advisors. The humans are a threat. Not now, perhaps. But in 10 years? 20? They will surpass us. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. They see things we miss. What do you propose? One advisor asked. We need to limit them. Remove them from the council before they gain too much influence. Or better yet, control their homeworld. Earth is rich in resources. If we claimed it before they could defend it properly, we could manage the human population. Keep them small and contained. The council would never approve such action without cause. Zeftik nodded slowly. Then we need to give them cause. We need the humans to break galactic law, to prove they are dangerous and untrustworthy. How do you plan to achieve this? The humans are clever, but they are new to our ways. They do not yet understand our laws or our customs. It should be easy to trap them in a violation. And once they are proven criminals, the council will support their removal. His advisors exchanged glances. This was risky. But the alternative was allowing these Deathworlders to become a major power. That was unacceptable. Prepare the evidence, Zeftik ordered. Make it convincing. We will accuse them of technology theft. The penalty is severe, and the council takes such crimes seriously. The advisors left to begin their work. Zeftik stood alone, looking out at the stars. He was doing what was necessary for the security of his people and the stability of the galaxy. The humans might be impressive, but they were still newcomers, still vulnerable. The crisis came exactly 5 weeks after the humans arrived at Harmony Station. Jake was in a council session when the Zelkron Consortium representative stood and demanded the floor. His name was Trevik, and he was known for being shrewd in business dealings. I bring serious charges against the Earth delegation, Trevik announced. We have evidence that they have stolen proprietary technology designs from multiple consortium members. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Jake felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his face calm. He had been expecting something, but not this specific accusation. Trevik presented his evidence. Detailed scans of Zelkron propulsion systems had been found in the human quarters. Technical specifications for consortium manufacturing processes. Even classified security protocols. All of it was stored on human data devices. The evidence looked damning. Timestamps showed the files had been accessed multiple times. The data was complete and accurate. There was no question that someone had copied this information illegally. This is clearly industrial espionage, Trevik continued. The penalty under galactic law is imprisonment of the guilty parties and a ban from council participation for no less than 100 years. Jake stood up. We did not steal this information. This evidence has been planted. Do you deny these files were found in your quarters? I deny that we put them there. Someone else did, to frame us. Trevik made a gesture of dismissal. A convenient claim. Do you have proof? Not yet, Jake admitted. But we will find it. The council debated for hours. Some delegates believed Jake. Others thought the evidence was too strong to ignore. The general mood was one of suspicion. These powerful Deathworlders had seemed too good to be true. Now their true nature was revealed. Commander Zeftik watched the proceedings with satisfaction. His plan was working perfectly. But then an opportunity presented itself that was too good to ignore. During a break in the session, Zeftik approached Jake. Captain Morrison, I have a proposal. The Vraxian Empire has an ancient tradition that the Council still honors. Trial by combat. One of your team against one of mine. Single combat. If your champion wins, the charges are dismissed and your innocence is proven. If our champion wins, the guilty verdict stands, and your people leave the station immediately. Jake studied Zeftik carefully. Why would you offer this? Because I believe in fairness, and because combat reveals truth in ways that words cannot. It was a trap. Jake knew it immediately. Zeftik was too confident. The Vraxians were larger and stronger than most species. They had 4 arms and natural weapons. In a fair fight, they would have a significant advantage, but Jake also knew that refusing would make them look guilty. The Council would wonder why they were afraid to prove their innocence through combat if they were truly innocent. I accept, Jake said. But I will be the one who fights. Zeftik blinked in surprise. He had expected Danny, the security officer. Jake was a diplomat. Older. Smaller than Danny. This would be even easier than planned. You are certain? Zeftik asked. Completely certain. The Council was informed of the agreement. The combat would take place in 3 days. Both sides would have time to prepare. The rules were simple. No weapons except those approved by tradition. No outside assistance. Combat continues until one party surrenders or cannot continue. When Jake returned to the human quarters, his team was waiting. They had heard about the accusation and were furious. This is complete garbage, Ben said. We never touched their systems. I know, Jake replied calmly. Which means someone planted that evidence. And I think I know who. Zeftik, Danny said. He's been watching us since day 1. Jake nodded. He sees us as a threat. This is his way of removing us before we become a real problem. So what do? Amy asked. 2 things. First, we prove the evidence was planted. Second, I win the combat trial. 7. Second. Katie looked worried. Jake, no offense, but you're going up against a Vraxian warrior. They're huge. They have 4 arms. Their skin is like armor. I know, Jake said with a small smile. Which is why I need to be smarter than strong. Danny stepped forward. Let me fight instead. I'm trained for this. That's exactly why you can't, Jake explained. Zeftik expects you to fight. He's prepared for you. He's chosen his champion based on beating you. But me? I'm an unknown variable, and that gives us an advantage. Over the next 3 days, the team worked on 2 separate tracks. Jake prepared for combat in ways that surprised them all. He didn't train with weights or practice fighting. Instead, he studied. He watched every recording he could find of Vraxian combat. He analyzed their movements, their techniques, their patterns. He studied the arena where the fight would take place. He learned the rules inside and out. He asked seemingly innocent questions about Vraxian anatomy and physiology. Meanwhile, Katie, Amy, Ben, and Danny investigated the planted evidence. They worked carefully, using skills they had learned in their various Earth careers. Katie analyzed the data files, looking for inconsistencies. Amy tracked ship movements around the station, looking for unusual patterns. Ben examined the physical security systems in their quarters. Danny quietly talked to other security personnel, building a network of contacts. They communicated in ways that wouldn't attract attention. They used Earth slang that the translators couldn't quite process. They referenced things that only humans would understand. They spoke in fragments and incomplete sentences that sounded like casual conversation but carried real meaning. That game last night was crazy, Amy might say. Which meant she had found something important. Yeah. The defense was really weak in the 3rd quarter. Katie would reply. Meaning the security had gaps at a specific time. The aliens around them heard friendly chatter. They had no idea they were listening to an active investigation. On the 2nd day, Katie made a breakthrough. The stolen files had metadata that didn't match. They claimed to have been accessed at certain times, but the system logs showed different activity at those moments. Someone had created the files recently and then altered the timestamps to make them look older. It's sloppy work, Katie told the others. Whoever did this didn't understand Earth computer systems well enough to fake it properly. Ben found evidence of someone tampering with their quarters. Microscopic traces of Vraxian skin cells near the data storage units. Someone had been in their rooms when they were not there. Amy tracked ship movements and found a pattern. Vraxian vessels had been making regular trips to Zelkron Consortium facilities, more than normal diplomatic relations would require. They were coordinating. Danny learned from his security contacts that Zeftik and Trevik had been seen meeting privately several times over the past few weeks. This was unusual. The Vraxians and Zelkrons were not normally close allies. On the third day, they met in their quarters to share what they had learned. They spoke in low voices, mixing English with technical jargon that would sound boring to anyone listening. "We have enough to prove the conspiracy," Katie said. "Zeftik and the Zelkron Consortium are working together. They want control of Earth's solar system. The resources there are valuable. They see us as competition," Amy added, "and as a threat, so they're trying to remove us before we get established." "The evidence is solid," Ben confirmed. "We can prove the files were planted. We can show the connection between Zeftik and Trevik. We can demonstrate that this whole thing is a setup." Unquote. Danny looked at Jake. "So do we present this evidence now? Stop the combat trial?" Jake shook his head. "If we reveal what we know, we show them how good we are at investigating, how sneaky we can be. That might scare them more than just being physically strong." "So what's the plan?" Katie asked. "I fight the combat trial. I win. And while I'm doing that, you prepare to release the evidence at exactly the right moment. We prove our innocence and expose the conspiracy at the same time." "Jake, are you sure you can win?" Amy asked gently. Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I spent 20 years in Earth intelligence services before I became a diplomat. I know how to fight. But more importantly, I know how to win. And winning doesn't always mean being the strongest." The night before the combat, Jake did something the others didn't expect. He slept for 9 hours. He ate a good breakfast. He spent an hour doing light stretches and breathing exercises. He seemed completely relaxed. The others were nervous. They had faith in Jake, but they had also seen the Vraxian champion. His name was Krevnak, and he was a giant, 8 feet tall, covered in thick scales, 4 massive arms. He had won over 50 combat victories in his career. Danny pulled Jake aside before they left for the arena. "If you get in trouble out there, surrender. We'll find another way." Jake put a hand on Danny's shoulder. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm not going to lose. Trust me." "How can you be so confident?" "Because Krevnak trained his whole life to be a warrior. He's strong and skilled. But I trained my whole life to understand weaknesses. Every system has a weakness. Every fighter has patterns. Every rule has a loophole. I've found all of them." They arrived at the arena 2 hours before the combat. The place was packed. Thousands of aliens had come to watch. Some wanted to see the humans humiliated. Others hoped to see them succeed. Most were just curious. Jake walked into the preparation area. He was offered traditional armor, but he declined. He wore simple, comfortable clothes. He was allowed to choose one weapon, according to ancient tradition. He chose a wooden staff, about 6 feet long, solid but light. The attendants looked confused. Krevnak would have plasma blades and energy shields. Jake would have a stick. Jake tested the staff's balance and nodded in satisfaction. "This will do." In the arena staging area, his team gathered around him for final words. "The evidence is ready," Katie said. "As soon as you give the signal, we release it to the council network. The security team is on our side," Danny added. "I've made sure of that." "Just be careful," Amy said. "And remember," Ben added, "we're humans. We're good at improvising." Jake smiled at them. "See you all after the fight. Try to look surprised when we win." See. The announcement echoed through the arena. The combat was about to begin. Jake walked out into the bright lights, carrying his simple wooden staff. The crowd roared. Across the arena, Krevnak emerged. He looked like a mountain made of muscle and scales. His weapons glowed with deadly energy. He raised all four arms, and the crowd cheered. The crowd fell silent in confusion. This was supposed to be a combat trial, a test of strength and honor. But the human was running away like a coward. Krevnak charged after Jake, his four arms raised and ready to strike. His plasma blades hummed with deadly energy. He was fast for his size, crossing the arena floor with powerful strides, but Jake was faster. He sprinted across the arena, his legs pumping with the efficiency that came from evolving in high gravity. To the watching aliens, he seemed impossibly quick. Krevnak was gaining on him, but not as fast as he should have been. Jake reached the far wall of the arena and dodged to the left. Krevnak swung one blade in a wide arc, but Jake was already moving. The blade hit nothing but air. "Stand and fight!" Krevnak roared in frustration. Jake said nothing. He kept moving. He ran in patterns, circling the arena, using obstacles for cover. There were decorative pillars, traditional weapons mounted on stands, and raised platforms. Jake used all of them. The crowd began to boo. Some threw harmless objects into the arena. This was shameful. The human was showing cowardice. Where was his honor? But in the human section of the arena, Katie was smiling. She understood what Jake was doing. "He's testing him," she said quietly to the others. "Testing what?" Amy asked. "Everything. Speed, reflexes, attack patterns, how fast Krevnak gets tired." "Jake's learning." Danny nodded slowly. "It's like scouting an opponent. You watch how they move before you engage." 5 minutes passed, then 10. Krevnak was breathing harder now. He was built for short, powerful bursts of activity. Extended chases were not his strength. The arena was at 40% Earth gravity, which felt normal to Jake, but was heavier than Krevnak was used to. Jake, meanwhile, was barely winded. Years of running in Earth's crushing gravity had built endurance that seemed superhuman here. He could do this all day if needed. 15 minutes in, Jake noticed Krevnak favoring his left side. When he attacked with his right arms, he pulled back slightly with the left. An old injury, maybe. Or just natural imbalance. It was a weakness. 20 minutes in, Jake saw the pattern of attacks. Krevnak always led with high strikes, then followed with low ones. It was ingrained training. Predictable. 25 minutes in, Krevnak was slowing down significantly. His breathing was labored. Sweat glistened on his scales. He was getting frustrated and tired. Jake stopped running. He turned to face Krevnak directly for the first time. He stood in the center of the arena, his wooden staff held loosely in both hands. The crowd quieted again. Was the human finally going to fight? Krevnak approached more cautiously now. He had learned that Jake was faster than he looked. But surely in direct combat, size and strength would win. Krevnak had 4 arms and weapons. Jake had a stick. Krevnak attacked. A high slash with his upper right blade, exactly as Jake had predicted. Jake didn't block. He stepped slightly to the side, letting the blade pass harmlessly by. The movement was minimal, efficient. Krevnak followed with a low strike from his lower left arm. Again, Jake moved just enough to avoid it. He was reading the attacks before they fully developed. The Vraxian warrior pressed his advantage, launching a combination of strikes. All 4 arms moved in sequence, blades cutting through the air. It was an impressive display of coordination and skill. Jake wove through the attacks like water flowing around rocks. He didn't waste movement. Every step was calculated. Every shift of weight had purpose. He made it look easy. Then Jake struck back. His staff swept low, catching Krevnak's front leg at the ankle. It wasn't a hard hit. It was precisely timed to when Krevnak's weight was shifting. The warrior stumbled. Jake's staff came up and tapped Krevnak's elbow joint on his upper right arm. Again, not hard. But it hit a nerve cluster. The arm went briefly numb, and the plasma blade dropped. The crowd gasped. The human had touched Krevnak. Twice, Krevnak recovered and attacked with renewed fury. But now Jake wasn't just dodging. He was countering. Every attack was turned aside or redirected. Every opening was exploited with a quick strike to a joint, a nerve, or an off-balance point. Jake was using leverage and precision against strength and size. He hit pressure points that made limbs go numb. He struck joints to limit movement. He used the staff to redirect attacks, sending Krevnak's own momentum against him. It was beautiful in a way. Like watching a dance where only one person knew the steps. Jake moved with fluid grace, while Krevnak crashed around like a bull trying to catch smoke. 10 more minutes passed. Krevnak was covered in minor bruises, and his movements were sluggish. He hadn't landed a single hit on Jake. His blades had cut nothing but air. His strength meant nothing if he couldn't connect. Jake swept Krevnak's legs again, harder this time. The warrior fell heavily. Before he could rise, Jake's staff was at his throat. Not pressing, not choking. Just there. A clear statement. I could finish this if I wanted to. Krevnak looked up at Jake. In the human's eyes, he saw something that terrified him. Not anger. Not hatred. Just cold calculation. Jake had been in control the entire time. Every moment had been planned. Every movement had been measured. Yield, Jake said quietly. Krevnak hesitated. Then he lowered his arms. I yield. The arena erupted in shocked noise. The human had won. The smaller, weaker, primitive human had defeated the Vraxian champion without breaking a sweat. Jake stepped back and offered his hand to help Krevnak up. The gesture surprised the warrior, but he accepted. Jake pulled him to his feet with strength that seemed impossible for his size. You fought with honor, Jake said. Thank you for the match. Krevnak nodded, still processing his defeat. This human had treated the combat like a puzzle to solve, rather than a battle to win. It was a completely different approach to fighting than anything he had encountered. The judge approached to declare Jake's victory. But before the announcement could be made, Commander Zeftik leaped into the arena. This is invalid, he shouted. The human used trickery and deception. This was not true combat. Jake turned to face Zeftik. I followed every rule. I used only the permitted weapon. I fought until my opponent yielded. What part was invalid? You ran like a coward. You did not engage honorably. The rules say nothing about how I must move. Running is not forbidden. Zeftik's face darkened with rage. His plan had fallen apart. The human was supposed to lose. This was all wrong. In his fury, he made a critical mistake. He attacked Jake himself. Zeftik was larger than Krevnak, and had fought in more battles than most warriors alive. His forearms lashed out with practiced precision. But he was also emotional, which made him sloppy. Jake didn't fight back. He dodged and defended, making no offensive moves. The entire arena watched in horror as the commander violated every rule of the trial by combat. The judge was shouting. Security was moving into position. But Jake just kept avoiding attacks, letting Zeftik's rage expose him. Then Katie's signal went out. In the human quarters, the prepared evidence was released to the entire council network. Every delegate received the data simultaneously. The proof of the conspiracy appeared on screens throughout the station. The fake metadata on the stolen files, the secret meetings between Zeftik and Trevik, the communications about controlling Earth, the Vraxian skin cells found in the human quarters, the ship movement patterns, all of it, carefully documented and clearly presented. In the arena, security finally pulled Zeftik away from Jake. The commander was restrained, still shouting about human trickery. But his words fell on deaf ears. Everyone could see the evidence now. The setup was exposed. Council delegates were already calling for an emergency session. Trevik, the Zelkron representative, was being detained. His own people were turning on him, furious that he had involved them in such a shameful scheme. Jake stood in the center of the arena, barely touched, despite being attacked by 2 Vraxian warriors. He wasn't even breathing hard. The judge approached, looking shaken. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize. You have won the trial by combat. The charges against your delegation are dismissed. Furthermore, it appears you have uncovered a serious crime against galactic law. Jake bowed slightly. Thank you. I accept your apology. As for the crime, my team and I simply defended ourselves by finding the truth. How did you know to prepare this evidence? We didn't know for certain, but we had suspicions, so we investigated. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The judge nodded. Your people are very thorough. We try to be. The crowd had gone from booing to cheering. The mood had shifted completely. The humans had been wronged, and they had proven their innocence, not just through combat, but through clever investigation. They had been attacked by one of the galaxy's strongest warriors and had defeated him without injury. They had been framed by a conspiracy and had exposed it with evidence. Danny, Katie, Amy, and Ben made their way down to the arena floor. They congratulated Jake, keeping their celebration modest. But their eyes were bright with triumph. That was amazing, Amy said quietly. That was terrifying, Katie corrected. You made it look easy. It was easy once I understood the patterns, Jake replied. Krevnak was skilled, but he fought the way he was trained. Predictably, I just had to figure out the pattern. And Zeftik attacking you? Ben asked. I was hoping he'd do something like that. Angry people make mistakes. I needed him to make a mistake in public where everyone could see it. Danny shook his head in admiration. You had this whole thing planned out. Most of it, some of it was improvisation. But that's what humans do, right? We adapt. Security escorted them from the arena. Behind them, officials were already arresting Vraxian and Zelkron personnel involved in the conspiracy. The scandal was spreading quickly. In their quarters that evening, the team finally relaxed. They had won. Not just the combat trial, but the larger battle for credibility and respect. So what happens now? Amy asked. Jake poured himself a drink. Now things get interesting. We've proven we can defend ourselves. We've shown we can uncover conspiracies. We've demonstrated that humans are tougher and smarter than expected. The galaxy is going to have to reassess how they think about Earth. Some of them will be scared of us, Katie observed. Some will want to be allies, Ben added, and some will want to test us further, Danny finished. Jake nodded. All of that is true. But we've established the foundation. We're not primitives to be controlled. We're not threats to be eliminated. We're a species that can hold our own in the galactic community. Did you see their faces when you won? Amy smiled. They couldn't believe it. They were thinking about it wrong, Jake explained. They assumed the trial would be about strength against strength, but I made it about intelligence against strength. Strategy against power. That's the human advantage. We think differently, because we had to, Katie said. On Earth, we weren't the biggest or the strongest. We were the smartest. We survived by being clever. And sneaky, Ben added with a grin. Definitely sneaky, Jake agreed. Which brings me to something we need to discuss. The galaxy now knows we're physically capable. They know we're intelligent. But they still don't know how deep that goes. How much of human history and culture is built on strategy and deception? Should we tell them? Danny asked. 3 months had passed since the trial by combat. Harmony Station looked the same on the outside, but everything had changed beneath the surface. The Vraxian Empire had withdrawn most of its personnel from the station. Commander Zeftik was in prison awaiting trial for conspiracy and assault. The Zelkron Consortium had collapsed financially after the scandal. Member companies scrambled to distance themselves from the illegal scheme. Trevik had been stripped of his position and banned from council activities for life. Earth, meanwhile, had gone from observer status to full council membership in record time. The vote had been nearly unanimous. After seeing what humans could do when threatened, most species decided they would rather have Earth as a friend than an enemy. The human delegation had expanded. What started as 5 people had grown to 50. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, cultural liaisons, and yes, a few more security personnel. Earth was taking its place in the galactic community seriously. Jake Morrison was now officially Ambassador Jake Morrison. He had an office in the council chambers and attended every session. His insights into political maneuvering had become valuable to many delegates who were learning that galactic politics was more complex than they had thought. He sat in a session now, listening to a dispute between two trading partners. On the surface, it was about shipping routes, but Jake could see the real issue was control of a valuable asteroid field. Neither side wanted to admit that openly, because it would make them look greedy. Jake waited for the right moment, then spoke. Perhaps we are discussing the wrong problem. The shipping routes are symptoms, not causes. If the Council mediates the resource distribution in Sector 7, the routes will resolve themselves. Several delegates looked at him in surprise, then understanding dawned. Jake had cut through the deception and identified the real issue without embarrassing either party. They could now address the actual problem. A delegate from the Yearlin species approached Jake after the session. You always see what others miss. How do you do this? Jake smiled. Humans have been practicing politics for a long time. We learn to look beneath the surface, to ask what people want rather than what they say they want. This is a skill all humans have, to varying degrees. We teach it to our children, how to negotiate, how to compromise, how to spot when someone is not being completely honest. The delegate looked troubled. Your entire species is trained in deception? Not deception, Jake corrected gently. Understanding. There's a difference. We know people don't always say what they mean. So we learn to read context, body language, and motivation. It's not about lying. It's about comprehension. The delegate nodded slowly, but Jake could see the unease. Humans were becoming known as the species that saw too much and understood too well. It made some aliens nervous. Katie Walsh had transformed the station's engineering department. What had been a cautious, by-the-book operation was now innovative and efficient. She taught the alien engineers that sometimes the solution to a problem was simpler than they thought. She stood in the main engineering bay now, explaining a new repair technique to a group of Krillix engineers. You've been using remote drones for this job because you think the environment is too dangerous. But look at the actual numbers. The temperature is only 80 degrees. The radiation is minimal. You could send a person in a basic suit and finish in an hour instead of a week with drones. The chief engineer, Vorn, checked his calculations. You are correct. But we have always done it with drones. I understand. But just because something has always been done one way, doesn't mean it's the best way. Sometimes you need to challenge assumptions. Katie had become popular among the younger engineers who were excited by her approach. The older ones were more resistant. But even they couldn't argue with results. Station efficiency had improved by 40% since humans arrived. She had also become a minor celebrity for her willingness to work in conditions others considered impossible. Just last week she had repaired a plasma conduit in an area with radiation levels that would kill most species in hours. She had finished the job in 90 minutes, and then gone to lunch. Amy Rodriguez ran the pilot training academy now. She taught navigation, evasive maneuvers, and crisis management. Her students came from 20 different species, all trying to learn how humans flew with such confidence. She was in a simulator with 3 students, running them through an asteroid field exercise. They were moving carefully, using computer assistance, and making slow progress. You're overthinking it, Amy said. Trust your instincts. The computer can only calculate probabilities. You need to feel the ship. How do we feel the ship? One student asked. Stop treating it like a machine you're controlling. Treat it like an extension of your body. When you walk, you don't calculate every step. You just move. Flying should be the same. The students tried, but they were still too careful, too dependent on instruments. Amy sighed. This was the hardest part to teach. Humans had instincts developed from millions of years of moving through 3-dimensional space in trees, jumping, climbing, and hunting. Other species had evolved in different environments and had different instincts, but some students were getting it. A young pilot from the Krillix species had natural talent, She was learning to trust her reactions and was improving rapidly. Amy made a note to recommend her for advanced training. Ben Carter had started a consulting business that was booming. Alien corporations paid him substantial fees to solve problems their own engineers couldn't. His secret was embarrassingly simple. He actually looked at the problems in person instead of just running computer models. He was at a mining facility now, examining equipment that kept breaking down. The facility engineers had replaced parts 3 times. They had run diagnostics. They had consulted with manufacturers. Nothing worked. Ben spent 15 minutes walking around the equipment, touching things, listening to sounds. Then, he pointed at a mounting bracket. There's your problem. This bracket is installed backward. It's creating vibration that cascades through the whole system. Flip it around, and your problems go away. The engineers looked embarrassed. How had they missed something so simple? Don't feel bad, Ben said. You were focused on the complex systems. Sometimes the problem is in the simple parts. It happens. He had a gift for making people feel better about their mistakes while still fixing their problems. It made him easy to work with and constantly in demand. Danny Price was training the Galactic Council security forces in new techniques. His classes were always full. Security officers from across the galaxy wanted to learn how humans approached combat and defense. He was teaching a class now on situational awareness. 20 students from various species sat in a classroom while Danny explained concepts. Security is not about fighting, it's about preventing fights. You do that by being aware of your environment. Know who's around you. Notice when something is out of place. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. A student raised a hand. But humans seem to be naturally good at violence. You have so many ways to fight without weapons. Danny shook his head. We're not naturally violent. We're naturally defensive. On Earth, there were many things that could kill us. Big animals, poisonous creatures, other humans who wanted our resources. So we learned to protect ourselves. Fighting was a last resort. But we needed to be ready for it. You make it sound like Earth is a terrible place. Earth is a beautiful place, Danny said firmly. But it's also dangerous. That danger made us tough and careful. It's not something we enjoy. It's just part of who we are. After class, a senior security officer approached Danny. Your species has many advantages. Speed, strength, endurance. But the awareness you teach is perhaps the most valuable. We have been too comfortable, too trusting. The human approach is making us better. Danny appreciated the compliment. But he also knew it came with an edge of fear. Humans were changing how the galaxy thought about security. Some people welcomed that. Others worried about what it meant. That evening, the original 5 humans gathered in Jake's quarters. It had become a weekly tradition. A time to talk freely without worrying about how aliens might interpret their words. I had 3 corporations offer me contracts today, Ben said. One of them wanted me to move to their homeworld permanently. I'm getting similar offers, Katie added. Everyone wants human expertise now. The Pilot Academy has a waiting list of 200 students, Amy reported. I could teach classes 20 hours a day and still not meet demand. My combat training program is the same, Danny said. And I'm getting requests to train military units, not just security. Some species are rethinking their entire defense strategies based on human methods. Jake listened to all of this while sipping his drink. Earth Command is pleased with our progress. They're sending more delegations to other stations and planets. We're becoming integrated into galactic society faster than anyone predicted. Is that good or bad? Katie asked. Both, Jake replied. It's good because we're building relationships and sharing knowledge. It's bad because we're also creating dependencies. Species are starting to rely on human solutions. That gives us influence, which gives us responsibility. Some of them are scared of us, Danny observed. They try to hide it. But I can see it. They worry about what humans might do if we decided to be aggressive. That's natural, Jake said. We are scary from their perspective. We're tougher than we look. We're smarter than they expected. We see through their political games, and we come from a world that would kill most of them in days. So, how do we handle it? Amy asked. We keep doing what we're doing. Be helpful. Be honest. Be good partners. Show them that humans can be powerful without being threatening, strong without being bullies. Ben nodded. It's working so far. But I wonder how long before they realize we're still holding back. The others looked at him. Jake smiled slightly. What do you mean? Come on, Ben said. We all know Earth sent us here as a test delegation. 5 people to see how aliens would react. We've been on our best behavior. But Earth has 8 billion people. How many of them are smarter than Katie? Faster than Danny? Better pilots than Amy? More strategic than Jake? Millions, Katie said quietly. Earth has millions of people with exceptional skills. We're good at what we do, but we're not exceptional by human standards. We're just competent. Exactly, Ben continued. The galaxy thinks we're impressive. But we're just average humans doing our jobs. They haven't seen our best scientists, our top engineers, our military strategists, our intelligence operatives who are actually good at being sneaky. Danny laughed. We're the friendly introduction. The safe version of humanity. Jake set down his drink. You're all right, but that's intentional. Earth Command knew what they were doing. Send competent, friendly people to make first contact. Build relationships. Show that humans can be trusted. Later, once we're established, we can introduce more capabilities. How much more? Amy asked. A lot more, Jake admitted. The galaxy knows we have 47 interstellar ships. That's true. They're lightly armed by galactic standards. Also true, what we haven't mentioned is that Earth has another 300 ships in production, or that our weapons are designed based on military principles developed over thousands of years of warfare, or that every human military has studied strategy and tactics to a degree that most galactic species can't comprehend. We also haven't mentioned our artificial intelligence capabilities, Katie added. Our cyber warfare potential. Our biological science. Our social engineering expertise. Or that human culture includes thousands of books, movies, and games about spies, heists, cons, and psychological manipulation, Ben said. We've been teaching ourselves to be sneaky for entertainment. The galaxy thinks we're tough fighters who got lucky with an investigation, Danny summarized. They don't know that deception and strategy are fundamental to human culture. Jake nodded. And we're going to keep it that way for now. Let them think we're straightforward Deathworlders who are strong and smart. They don't need to know about our 5,000 years of recorded military history, our philosophical traditions about the art of war, our espionage techniques, our propaganda and influence operations. That seems dishonest, Amy said. It's strategic, Jake corrected. We're not lying. We're just not volunteering information. If someone asks direct questions, we answer honestly, but we don't explain the full scope of human capabilities unless there's a reason to, because if they knew everything, they'd be terrified. Katie said. Some would be, Jake agreed. Others would want to be strong allies. But either way, it would change how they interact with us. Right now, we're the new species that's surprisingly capable. We're interesting and useful. If they knew the full truth, we'd be the overwhelming military power that every species has to account for in their planning. Is Earth really that strong? Danny asked. Jake pulled up a classified report on his secure data pad. According to this intelligence assessment, if Earth went to war with the Vraxian Empire today, we would win within 6 months. We have better tactics, better adaptability, and we're willing to take casualties that would break most galactic species. The Vraxians are tough, but they've never fought an enemy like us. The others absorbed this information in silence. We're not going to war with anyone, Jake continued. That's not what we want. But Earth Command needs us to understand the reality. We're not the weak newcomers. We're potentially the strongest military power in this region of space. We just choose not to advertise it. So what's the long-term plan? Ben asked. Integration and partnership. We build relationships. We share knowledge. We help solve problems. We prove that humans make good allies. Over time, as we become more established, we'll gradually reveal more of our capabilities, but always in the context of being helpful, not threatening. And if someone threatens us again, Danny asked. We defend ourselves, Jake said simply. Just like we did with Zeftik. We use intelligence, strategy, and careful planning. We win decisively, but with minimum force. We show that we can protect ourselves without being aggressive. Katie leaned back in her chair. So we're sneaky bastards pretending to be friendly neighbors. We're friendly neighbors who happen to be very good at being sneaky, Jake corrected with a smile. There's a difference. They talked for another hour, sharing observations about galactic culture and discussing Earth's future in space. As the evening wound down, they stood on the observation deck of Jake's quarters, looking out at the stars. 3 months ago, we were just a small delegation hoping to make a good impression, Amy said. Now we're changing how the galaxy thinks about warfare, engineering, and politics. Not bad for 5 average humans, Ben said. We're not changing things alone, Jake reminded them. Earth is sending hundreds more people, scientists, artists, teachers, traders. They'll all make their own impressions. We just opened the door. And proved that Deathworlders aren't just strong, Katie added. We're smart. We're adaptable. We're creative. And sneaky, Danny said with a grin. Don't forget sneaky. The galaxy is definitely not going to forget that, Amy laughed. Jake looked out at the vast space before them. Thousands of stars. Hundreds of species. Countless opportunities and challenges. Earth was taking its first real steps into this galactic community, and the journey was just beginning. You know what's funny? Jake said. The galaxy thought they were doing us a favor by inviting us to join. They thought they'd be teaching primitive Deathworlders how civilization works. And instead? Katie asked. Instead, they're learning that civilization has many forms. That strength isn't just physical. That intelligence includes strategic thinking. That survival skills from a dangerous world translate into capabilities they never imagined. They're learning that humans are full of surprises, Ben said. Good surprises, though, Danny added. We could have come in here being aggressive, using our advantages to dominate. But we didn't. Because that's not who we are, Jake said. Humans survived on Earth, not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest and the most cooperative. We built societies. We helped each other. We created art and science and philosophy. Yes, we also created weapons and tactics. But those were tools for survival, not our purpose. So what is our purpose in the galaxy? Amy asked. Jake thought about that. To be good partners. To solve problems. To build bridges between species. And when necessary, to defend ourselves and our friends with every advantage we have. By being sneaky bastards, Katie said. Exactly, Jake agreed. By being sneaky bastards who choose to use our sneakiness for good. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from Harmony Station. Each ship represented a different species, a different world, a different story. And now, humans were part of that larger story. A message appeared on Jake's datapad. It was from Earth Command. Another delegation was being prepared. This one would include some of Earth's best minds in physics and engineering. They were ready to share human science with the galaxy. Jake smiled. The next phase was beginning. The galaxy had seen what average humans could do. Soon they'd see what exceptional humans could achieve. And after that, well, there would be more surprises. Because that was the thing about humans. They were always full of surprises. They adapted. They innovated. They found new solutions to old problems. They made friends easily and defended those friends fiercely. They were tough when they needed to be and gentle when they could be. And yes, they were absolutely sneaky bastards when the situation called for it. The galaxy was going to have to get used to that, because humanity was here to stay. And the age of humans in the stars was going to be something special, not because humans were superior, but because they were different. Because they brought perspectives and capabilities that complemented what the galaxy already had. Because they understood that true strength came from cooperation, not domination. And because, when pushed, they were clever enough to win, without anyone realizing there had been a fight until it was already over. Danny raised his glass. To being sneaky bastards. The others raised theirs. To being sneaky bastards. They echoed. Outside, the galaxy turned. Species went about their business. The council met and made decisions. Trade happened. Science progressed. And somewhere in all of that, humans were quietly becoming an essential part of it all. Not through force. Not through deception. But through being exactly what they were. Survivors from a dangerous world who had learned to thrive by being smart, adaptable, and just a little bit sneaky. The galaxy had invited humans to join them. But in doing so, they had also invited change. Because humans didn't just adapt to the galaxy. The galaxy was adapting to humans. And that was going to make everything more interesting. Eventually, maybe. But for now, it's better if they underestimate us in some ways while respecting us in others. Let them think we're straightforward fighters who got lucky with our investigation. They don't need to know about our thousands of years of espionage, psychological warfare, and tactical innovation. The others nodded. It made sense. Humans had been playing complex games of strategy and deception since the first cities were built. They had refined the art of misdirection over millennia. The galaxy wasn't ready for that level of sneakiness yet. So we stay friendly, helpful, and honest, Jake summarized. We build relationships. We prove we're valuable partners. And if someone tries to betray us again, well, we'll handle it the same way we did this time. By being sneaky bastards, Amy said with a smile. Exactly, Jake confirmed. It's what we do best. Jake stood in the center of the arena, calm and ready. He had spent 3 days preparing for this moment. He knew what he needed to do. The judge announced the rules. The combat would continue until surrender or incapacitation. Death was not required. Honor would be satisfied by clear victory. Krevnak and Jake faced each other. The Vraxian warrior looked confident. The human diplomat looked small and fragile. The signal sounded. The combat began. And Jake did something that shocked everyone in the arena. He ran. He would strike before they realized the danger. He would remove them from the galactic stage permanently. What Zeftik did not know was that Jake had already noticed him watching them. Katie had detected unusual scans of their equipment. Amy had spotted Vraxian ships following her supply runs. Ben had found monitoring devices near their quarters. Danny had seen the suspicious looks and careful positioning of Vraxian guards. The humans said nothing. They continued their work. They smiled and were friendly. They seemed oblivious to the danger, but among themselves, in their private quarters, using Earth languages that the translators struggled with, they talked. They shared observations. They made plans, because if there was one thing humans understood, it was danger. And another thing they understood was how to prepare for it without showing their hand. The trap was being set, but the question was, who was trapping whom? So what do we do? Danny asked. Jake thought for a moment. We learn. We observe. We adapt. That's what humans do best. Across the station, in his private quarters, Commander Zeftik was having similar thoughts. The humans were more than he had expected. Faster, stronger, probably, and there was something in the way they looked at things. They observed everything. They noticed details. They were always aware of their surroundings. It reminded him of predators, but also of prey animals that had learned to hunt. These Deathworlders could be a problem. Better to neutralize the threat before it grew. Better to find a way to control them or remove them from the galactic stage. Zeftik began to plan.